Okay, I'm going to get going here, and thank you. And thank you to Enter Life, the Mayor's Megawatt Challenge. Congratulations on getting the studies completed. I think that you've done a wonderful job. And we're pleased to support you in that journey. And I think also kudos to your organization for getting this done in probably some of the most challenging circumstances with COVID. And I think the results are great, and we can certainly build from them. And congratulations to all the municipalities who participated as well too. It's a great first step in the right direction. So as we get going today, my plans, I've got 20 minutes. I don't have a ton of time. This is a topic I could talk 10 times longer than Frank did at the beginning of this presentation, because there's lots and lots and lots of details. So I'm going to be doing a very brief overview, but I would like to tell everyone that if they'd like to learn more about this or discuss this more, to reach out and let's start a conversation. We can talk about it. It's something that we're very passionate about over here at CIMCO with this net zero naturally, and we'd be happy to help you along your own journey with your municipality. So the fact of the matter is, and unless you've been hiding underneath a rock for the past couple of months or couple of years, we are in a climate crisis right now. And the world emits 52 billion tons of CO2 every single year. And we take a look at the top 5 ways that we're doing that, or the top 5 contributors. It's how we make things, it's how we get around, it's how we grow our food, it's how we create our energy, and it's how we cool the world. And as a matter of fact, 10% of global emissions come from cooling. And why this is gaining a lot of traction with governments worldwide and companies and organizations is because the faster our Earth warms, the more cooling we're going to need. It was very interesting this year. I was talking to some of my colleagues in Edmonton, and they were installing air conditioners. So I don't know if anybody on the call is actually from Edmonton, but apparently they don't have many air conditioners prior to this year, but they had a heat wave, and then they went out in droves and started to put them in. And that's what we're seeing here. So it's like, if you read any report on cooling, global cooling, it's only expected to increase as the Earth continues to warm. And that's a very scary proposition, because one of the very things that's causing global warming is going to result in more installations of air conditioning and cooling systems. And you may have heard this whole thing about 1.5 degrees. So 1.5 degrees, we have to stop and make sure that we do not warm the Earth by 1.5 degrees, or the way that we live right now will be changed drastically. So it's like, we need to act now if we're going to do this. And the most important point, I learned that actually from the Mayor's Megawatt Challenge from 2 years ago, when I saw a great presentation from the Rocky Mountain Institute, is that the decisions we make today are going to affect tomorrow. So I know that there's this big push towards, I know many of the municipalities here have net zero initiatives for 2030 and 2050, but you can't get to 2030 and 2050 and then start making your decisions. It just doesn't work that way. And I know it doesn't take a rocket science to know that. So we have to act now. And the reason why I have this particular slide here with this particular message is because as we've been out and as we've been meeting with municipalities from coast to coast, it's the urgency that is the biggest factor here to make sure that we start driving this ahead. I know that it's easy for me to sit here and say urgency is the most important thing. I know it's balancing budgets. I know it's balancing all of these things to make it work, but it really is truly the urgency. And the very fact that everybody's here today and they're interested and they're engaged tells me that these are the people that are going to be driving that urgency within the municipality so we can get to where we need to go. Looking a bit more domestically at Canada's commitments. So about maybe 2 years ago, the federal government got up and they said that we want to be net zero by 2050. We want to be net zero 45% of our 2008 targets or 2006 targets by 2030. Subsequently, municipalities all over Canada started to make their own climate pledges legislated. This year in June, Bill C-12 was released by the federal government to hold the federal government accountable to make sure that we hit those targets. You'll see this little squiggly line here that looks like a roadmap. This is talking about the federal government plan to make sure that they hold themselves accountable to hit their net zero targets. There has been an introduction to carbon credits and taxing. We saw that through Justin Trudeau's speech at the COP26. And the most exciting part about this is that the Canadian government has put their money where their mouth is. Now, I'm not going to give as much justice to this as the Federation of Canadian Municipalities that are next, but I do want to say that they have allocated a substantial amount of funds to help municipalities get to net zero. So that's very, very important. So the point of this slide is that this is legislated. It's something that's important, and it's the government has made funds available for us to get there. Now, why ice rinks? Well, ice rinks are the second or third largest emitter of greenhouse gas within a municipality. And what makes ice rinks so exciting in this particular space, and Frank alluded to this in his presentation, is that we can eliminate all of the natural gas from ice rinks through waste heat and through heat pumps. And so when we take a look at this here, not only is this the second or third largest emitter of greenhouse gas, it's also because the byproduct of refrigeration is waste heat. It's also an area where you can actually get to that 50% reduction in greenhouse gas within one of your facilities. So every town has an ice rink, and this is a tremendous opportunity for us to be able to tap into that and to move forward with it. So the question is, pathway to net zero, how do we get there? Okay, and like I said, this presentation, again, I could go on for, I'm already into this for 7 minutes now, and I could go on about this for about 2 or 3 hours. So again, it's a very high overview, but if we take a look at the perfect scenario, and this technology already exists, is a ice rink that uses solar panels with a battery that provides energy to a refrigeration system that makes great sheet of ice. And the waste heat from that refrigeration then goes back into heating the building for all the showers, the domestic hot water and heating. And that in the event that a refrigerant should leak to atmosphere, it's a natural refrigerant with no issues to the environment. So our pathway to net zero is to ensure that you do not use refrigerants with high global warming potential, that you optimize your energy consumption through active energy monitoring, heat recovery, and then you harness green power. And the great thing about this is these technologies all exist today, and you're able to accomplish this. So let's dive into the first one, eliminate refrigerant emissions. Earlier, I said that certain refrigerants cause global warming, and it's estimated that 10% of global warming globally is caused by refrigerants. So this is something that's pretty important, but it's not just in ice rinks. Refrigerants are all over your municipality. You have rooftop units on all of your community centers and your town halls. You have vending machines all over the place. You've got these commercial style refrigerators. You've got your town vehicles, and of course you have your refrigeration systems. And I'm sure there's more out there that use refrigerants. And it's one of those things, unless you're aware of it, you don't realize it. But what the big problem is that when these refrigerants leak to atmosphere. So there's a couple of studies out there by Greenpeace, and one of them is that 80% of R22, that's the one that was just phased out recently, is in our atmosphere right now. It's in our atmosphere right now. When it goes into our atmosphere, it sits there, and it creates a haze, so to speak, and then that's what's causing the energy reflects up and then it reflects back down to Earth. And so how do these leak? Well, they leak at the end of life. That's the single biggest issue. You know, if you have a rooftop unit, you go to get it replaced, it's a lot of work for that company to reclaim all that refrigerant, take it to a disposal site, when all they really have to do is crack a valve and just let it go to atmosphere. It's odorless, it doesn't smell, it just goes to atmosphere, nobody's the wiser. And that's why 80% is out there in the environment. It makes sense because, you know, you throw out your refrigerator, you get rid of your car, it's just one of those things that's pretty easy for somebody to crack a valve. And if they don't understand what the consequences are, then it just happens. And it's very hard to police. And there's a lot of studies out there, if you have any interest in that, there's a lot of studies out there on the impacts and why end of life is such an issue. Second of all, maintenance. When you do maintenance to a piece of equipment, you take a piece of equipment out, if it's not properly, the valves aren't working or it's not properly done, we're going to have some maintenance leaks and finally breakdown and failures. You know, your air conditioner, your car breaks down, you don't have air conditioner, guess what? You're out of refrigerants. And those are all the reasons why this ends up in our atmosphere. So as I said, it's a huge problem. It's 10% of the issues. Diving in a little bit to these refrigerants and what they are, and you may be, I mean, this is the problem with this topic. It's really, really complicated from a technical perspective. This is just a high level, easy to understand chart of some of the different types of refrigerants that are out there. So if you've heard of R22 before, that would have been the latest refrigerant that was just phased out. it's a combination of hydrogen, chlorine, fluorine, and carbon in that sort of order. And it causes two issues: ozone depletion and global warming potential. So that was phased out. So right now you cannot install a new system with R22 in it. However, there's still lots of them in operations. The next phase to help combat against global warming is they released something called HFC. So as you can see here in the chart, very easy. The chlorine was taken out, and there you go. You've got an HFC. R134A is very popular in cars and air conditioning systems. Very high global warming potential. That's the result. So right now, if you read about the Kigali Agreement, the Paris Accord, these are the current target to be phased out next. What we're seeing now are these new HFO, HFC blends. So a blend is when they take two refrigerants together, like a fine scotch, and they make a blended scotch. And so this is a combination. And the reason why they've done this is because the HFOs are flammable. The HFCs have high global warming potential. You mix them together and you have one that's less flammable with less global warming potential. And then you're left with this HFO, HFC blend. And they're really the flavor of the day today. And the biggest difference is organic compounds were added in. And then finally, and this is really known as a transitional refrigerant, because again, this is going to be subject to other phase outs as we move forward. So the next generation is an HFO, which is hydrogen, fluorine, and organic compounds. It's R1234YF it's known by. If you don't know it, you'll probably know it sometime in the future. The biggest problem that is suspected here with some studies is that it causes a forever chemical called trifluoric acid. And that's a forever chemical found in our water, and our water treatment plants do not have the capabilities to deal with this, and they're not sure what the consequences are going to be. So why does this matter? It matters for a couple of reasons. Number one, environmental stewardship. Number one, you can't get to net zero if you're going to have a refrigerant that's leaking to atmospheres causing environmental issues. And the other issue that you're going to have is that it could be phased out. And you know, we're dealing with a customer right now that has a R22 system. It is in perfect condition, and we're taking it out to put a different system in, because what can you do? It's like changing from gas to diesel sometimes. It's very complicated. And then finally, our last category, and actually most ice rinks have natural refrigerants already, which is great. Ammonia and CO2, they're made of natural compounds, which means that if they leak to atmosphere, there's no issue. So that's sort of like talking a mile a minute of the different types of refrigerants, but it's an important topic, and it's beyond the engine room. It's beyond the engine room, and it's all within your municipality. So when we're taking a look at how do I make the decision, well, first of all, some criteria is how much energy does it use? What's the safety issues? What's the available technology out there? Like, you cannot go to a car dealership and say, give me a car with ammonia for air conditioning. It just doesn't exist. You still need to have cars. What's the future availability of this refrigerant should be a question. And finally, the environmental impact on cost. So really quickly, Cole's notes, energy requirements. So as we're seeing here, this is a typical 100-ton plant using different types of refrigerant. This would be at 10 degrees suction, 90 degrees discharge. And as you can see, the horsepower per ton. And what this means is that based on this study that was done with all these different refrigerants, a CO2 system and an ammonia system would require 123 horsepower per ton, where a R22 system would require 150 horsepower per ton. What does this mean to you? Well, horsepower per ton efficiency this is how much horsepower is required to generate the refrigeration at those temperatures, which means that the ammonia and the CO2 with natural refrigerants are more efficient. So that's one of the reasons, it's one of the key reasons why we see ammonia or CO2 in 80% of the ice rinks out there. The second point that I'm going to bring up here is future availability. So let me just see here. There we go, future availability. So refrigerants, as I mentioned, there's 5 top priorities in the beginning of my presentation. One of them is reducing refrigerants. So this is something that is on the mind of governments, and it's on the mind of policymakers. And there's a couple of policies that already exist right now, like the Montreal Protocol, which is for ozone depletion, the Paris Agreement, and the Kigali Agreement that are global agreements. And then we also are seeing more regional initiatives, sort of like California with their GWP limits that they've now placed for their own state. And we expect to see more of these moving forward. As you can see, California Anything over 150, if you go to the CARB website, which is the California Air Resource Board, anything over 150 is high. Okay, so as you're taking a look at your options, anything over 150 is considered a high global warming refrigerant. Cost per pound, another criteria. These are some costs that I just got. I mean, I think that in the world of refrigerants, there's a big range. But on this particular day, when I got the costs, ammonia CO2 is about $3 a pound, and some of the other designer refrigerants are substantially more. Safety. Okay, so one of the misconceptions here is that the refrigerants are safe. Okay, every refrigerant is dangerous. Every refrigerant is dangerous, and it all depends on exactly what kind of danger that you're facing. If you take a look at the MSDS sheet of whatever refrigerant that you're looking at, you're going to see what some of the issues are. They could cause burns, they could cause toxicity, asphyxiation, they could be flammable. So it's important to know the facts. But the important thing that I would like to really stress to the crowd here today at this presentation is that there is no safe refrigerant. There's no safe refrigerant that you're just going to be able to crack a valve and just breathe it in and put it on your skin, that you're going to have some sort of issue with it. And it's like anything else in life. It's like the cars can be dangerous to drive or operate, and the boilers in our house and propane gas barbecues. All these things are dangerous if you don't maintain them and you don't know how to use them. But we can mitigate things. And the way that we can mitigate things is through lower charge. And there's great technologies out there right now where we can get a charger refrigerant in under a cylinder per pad in an ice rink. Great technologies right now. We have other technologies that can sense a refrigerant leak and automatically pump the system down and store it. So in the event there is a leak, it happens automatically. Really good, great leak detection is going to help you, ventilation. And then finally, the two key points: regular maintenance and life cycle replacement. These refrigeration systems are machinery. It's machinery that has the capability of breaking down. They need to be maintained, and you need to replace failed and worn parts. So that's a very important thing as we take a look at the safety factor. But I do urge again that as you're looking at this, that you didn't get caught up to say that's safe, I don't need to worry. You do need to worry, okay? So a little business case, Barbara Ann Scott Ice Rink Trail, a great little trail in the city of Toronto downtown. It uses CO2 direct, and it's a great sheet of ice. If you find yourself downtown Toronto, I would highly recommend skating on it. And it was the first CO2 ice rink trail in North America. So moving along to our next category. So I promised you not everything is that long. I just spent most of the time on the refrigerant section. I'm just going to very quickly touch base on eliminating refrigerant emissions and harnessing green power. So if we take a look at this next section, is all about heat recovery, as Frank was talking about. 62% of greenhouse gas from ice rinks are from space and water heating. So that's what I personally find so exciting here when we talk about how we're going to get to net zero, because the byproduct of a refrigeration system is heat, which means that if we can tap into that, then that is our pathway to net zero with some substantial gains. And here we go. Here's a view of our EcoChill system, and a view of the ice rink, which it's still crazy when you think about it, how we design these rinks sometimes, that in this one room over here, we have a system that's providing cooling, and then we just throw the heat outside. And then we've got this other room over here that's paying for natural gas to come in to heat all the things that you require in the rink, when really we should be looking at it from a holistic point of view. And the technology exists, lots and lots of examples. So I think that this is a great opportunity. I'm thrilled to see that was picked up by the studies. Okay, so retrofit options. We have lots and lots and lots of retrofit options. So you don't always have to do a brand new install if you're going to get there. So I can get into details about these, but essentially what all these are, they're add-ons to the system so that you can get there over time, net zero over time. And realistically speaking, probably 90% of the buildings are going to be net zero over time, because we're not going to build brand new buildings all over the place. So again, a great study will identify all of these things. So here's a quick little case study here. Concordia University went from an R22 system to a CO2 system. Again, $40,000 per year in savings. A great story. And you can find this case study in more detail on our website. Now, just a little bit shifting off gears here from the ice rinks. This is a job that we did in Edmonton, and what they were building a new community And inside this little sort of spaceship looking building is an eco-chill system, which would be the same system that you would put into a hockey rink. But they're not cooling a hockey rink. Actually, what they're doing is they're using the technology of the 1 unit of energy in for 4 units energy of heat, and they're heating the 30,000 residents within the community have a district heating and cooling from this one single plant. So I know that there's a lot of municipalities on here. This is a fantastic business case in regards to getting rid of a lot of boilers at homes, and to be able to utilize this whole concept of district heating and cooling. And these are the types of projects that are going to help get us to net zero. Okay, so next one is harnessing the green power. Probably, I think I'm most excited about this section today. So Ontario generates green power. We all know we use nuclear, but there's a couple of factors here that we have to consider. So number one is electricity is expected to increase. It's expected to get more expensive for a variety of different reasons. And the other thing is there is a belief that there's going to be as we electrify more and more and more, there's going to be access to power, which is going to be a concern. So although that we already produce green power today, which is great, tomorrow we're going to have to address that. Either they're going to build some more nuclear power plants, or they're going to have to look at on-site green power. Great thing that we're offering right now is a sun / battery energy storage solution. And this uses solar power and a battery. And really the concept would be is that we would be able to put one of these systems in, which would generate enough power for the ice rink, which would then generate enough heat for the building. So this really does bring us back to this holistic net zero naturally solution. And so anyways, that sort of sums it up from a big picture perspective, 1,000 words a minute type of presentation. But how can we help? Well, we've got a 4-step plan. So the first step, and this aligns with the FCM grants, and it also aligns with what EnerLife has been doing, and it also aligns with what the city of Markham was just talking about they were doing, is first of all, let's get the big picture done. Let's understand where you are. Let's baseline. Like, everything starts with the truth. Where are we today, and how do we move forward? Step number 2, as Frank was talking about, let's check off those easy wins, the ones with the good paybacks. And as we start getting momentum, we got to get into the deep work. These are the ones that may be a little bit more complicated, but we can still do it. And then finally, step 4 is the long game. And the long game is really where we start to put on the on-site green power and some of these things that maybe the payback's quite not there, but if we're really going to get to net zero, these are the type of projects that we're going to have to tackle. I know that I was already gone over about these incentives, and these incentives, I know the Federation of Canadian Municipalities is after me, and they're going to talk about this in much more detail than what I can do. But what I can say is that this is available. It's a gift from our federal government. Let's take advantage of it, and let's see if we can start driving towards some of these net zero solutions. So I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with everyone today. And as I said, any questions that you may have, or if you want to start a conversation with regards to your own particular municipality, let's dive in and let's have a conversation. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, David. That was really fascinating presentation. We have a few questions here for you. I'm not sure if you can answer right now or maybe in the Q&A box during Emily's presentation or afterwards. But so one of the questions, I just found a website where Opteon is identified as their official refrigeration solution, apparently as their refrigerant of choice. Do you folks recommend this refrigerant?
Well, I think that it's, we this year took a stance in regards to all of our ice rink packages that we're manufacturing are going to use natural refrigerants, and that's the baseline as our pathway to net zero. And so from our perspective, we really believe in about natural refrigerants, and we've been using them since we started back in 1913. So I know there's other options out there, but certainly if you're talking to us, it's going to be about CO2 and ammonia, because we feel that is the most sustainable net zero path for ice rink projects.
Fantastic. Any comments on the pressures needed in using CO2 as a refrigerant via an indirect ammonia brine glycol system?
Yeah, that is one of certainly the pressures are higher, but again, like, the system's designed for those pressures. And so far, we've We've seen that it hasn't been an issue in the field, and our mechanics are perfectly capable of servicing those plants. But it is one of the things that it does have higher pressures to achieve the results that are required.
Awesome, thanks. And the last question, the battery option seems great. Has this been installed anywhere? If so, it'd be great to know where.
Not on an ice rink yet. So it has not been installed on an ice rink yet. So, but I will say that if anybody wants to be the volunteer, let's do it. Like let's do this, right? Let's get some government funding and let's be the first, right? Because I just love this concept of this net zero rink that does not rely on the grid. Like, I mean, that just totally excites me. So, but it has been used in other applications. So it's not like a total guinea pig project. So yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about it. So somebody out there that's on this call that wants to talk about that and further, let's start talking about it and see if we can make something happen.
Awesome. Well, again, David, thank you so much for taking the time out to share all this wonderful information with our group. There was lots of useful information here to help municipalities really make informed and sustainable decisions about their ice rinks. Wonderful. So anyone, please feel free to reach out to David if you have any other questions for him.
Thank you, Catherine, and keep up the good work.
Thanks, David.
Okay.
Talk soon.